the largest union talk radio program in these southern United States. You are listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, and folks, our lines are open right now. We do not have very many guests on today, so we have the phone lines open. If you want to call in at any time during the program, you can do so. That phone number is 844-899-8857. 844-899-TVLR. Appreciate y'all tuning in today. Looking forward to talking to y'all. We have a fellow in the chat, Johnny17. What's up, Teamsters? I'm assuming that this Johnny fellow is a Teamster. Glad to have you. Looking forward to talking to folks today. Like I said, give us a call at any time if you want to talk about one of the topics of the program. I want to start with this. I saw this tweet from Katie Britt that really, really frustrated me, and it's about the shutdown. And we've talked about the stuff that's going on with the shutdown, and I've got so many frustrations with the way that the shutdown is being covered, particularly like on right-wing media, talk radio and stuff like that. There's an attempt to say that, this is all about the health care for illegals, and we've talked about this multiple times, but I just want to reiterate, and you can like look this up for yourself, and you can verify what I'm saying here. There is a law that was signed by Ronald Reagan that says emergency health care, emergency medical care, like in the emergency room, has to be administered. Like you can't just kind of leave people, dying in your waiting room or on the streets. If somebody comes in, you got to treat them, and you worry about payment later. And I think that there are lots of things that need to change about our healthcare system. Right? There are so many problems with it, but one of those problems is not that doctors rummage through your pockets before they give you life-saving medical treatment, right? That seems like that would be a worse world to live in, where before any health care is given or any surgery is administered, they rummage through your pockets and see if you've got an ID or a credit card or something that they can put it on. That seems like that would be a worse world to me. And so the federal government reimburses some of that care that is, administered in an emergency way. It's not very much, but they reimburse some of it. And so, obviously, in some cases, you're going to get undocumented immigrants taking, who are administered emergency aid. And some of that is some of that some of Medicaid covers some portion of that, right? And so the Republicans are trying to make that like a central portion of the fight, and that is just not what it's about. Like, Republicans are not saying that we should have hospitals rummage through people's pockets to make sure that they can pay before they administer health care. And so the Republican plan is to force hospitals to give health care to undocumented immigrants, to give life-saving emergency medical treatment to undocumented immigrants, and not reimburse them for any of it. That's the Republican plan. And so what happens under that system then? Well, the hospitals are going to have to pass that cost on somehow. So they're going to pass it on to the other insurers, and they're going to make healthcare increase costs for everybody. Right? That's the mechanisms of what's going to happen under the Republican plan. And so the Democrats, as part of, like a very, very, very small part of the fight over the ACA subsidies, are saying like, well, if the federal government is going to force hospitals to administer emergency medical care, we should probably reimburse some portion of it if the person cannot pay. That seems reasonable to me. But the vast majority of the cost that we're talking about is over these ACA subsidies. And, I like to go over some of the numbers every time that I talk about this, because it is so startling. Alabama Arise has a good fact sheet about this. You should check it out, and you should, you should be a member of Alabama Arise. They do a lot of really good work. If Congress does not extend the ACA subsidies then 98% of people who are enrolled in ACA Marketplace Healthcare, basically 100% of those folks are going to see their monthly premiums increase because basically everybody in the marketplace gets subsidies. The average marketplace premium in Alabama will increase by 93%. That means that 50% of the people on the marketplace are going to see their premiums increase by more than 50%. That seems bad. 130,000 Alabamians could lose health insurance, and this loss of health coverage would cost Alabama $1.14 billion with a B, $1.14 billion in economic activity and 10,000 jobs in 2026. That seems bad. And so the Democrats are saying, well, look, we don't want that to happen. And so we are going to, we're not going to provide votes unless you allow this to happen. And look, Republicans, they don't need Democratic votes to do anything, right? You know, that now there is a rule that says that for legislation like this, you have to have 60 votes. Well, guess what? You can change the rule with 50 votes. So Republicans are, they're the ones behind this. They can change it at any time. And they can get the Democratic votes if they just say, okay, fine, we're not going to increase healthcare costs for hundreds of thousands of Americans, for millions of Americans. Fine, you got us. We're not going to hurt working people. And so and the thing that really set me off about this, a tweet from Katie Britt, U.S. Senator from Alabama. She said that every reporter should ask Democrats a few of these questions. And the one that really set me off was, should taxpayers subsidize health insurance for an early retiree couple who, despite being retired, still make more than $84,000 a year? This woman is trying to stoke up class warfare against 60-year-olds, a 60-year-old couple who makes $84,000 a year, which when you're a couple and you're making $84,000 a year as a household, that means that each of you are bringing home $40,000 or some other division of $80,000 a year, right? Maybe the guy brings home 60 and the girl brings home 20. She's trying to get you upset at retirees who are making $40,000 a pop in their retirement. And saying that, we shouldn't subsidize their health insurance because they make so much money being $84,000 a year. Yes, I do think that if somebody has been able to work their whole life and they have the finances and they have saved up their whole life and they've got the finances to be able to retire at 60, and the only thing that is keeping them at work is that if they retire a couple of years early, then their healthcare costs are going to be tens of thousands of dollars a year, then yes, we should stop that and we should allow people to retire early if everything else in their life is such that they can. I don't think actually that it's a good thing that we are seeing people retire later and later and later. I think that people should be able to enjoy the fruits of their labor towards the end of their life. I don't think that we should have, people who have to work as Walmart greeters at age 90. I think that's bad for the world that we live in a world where that is the case. And here, Senator Britt, literal millionaire, worth $10 million, maybe tens of millions of dollars. A lot of her wealth having come from her husband, who was an NFL player who benefited from unionization in the NFL, was a member of the NFL Players Association, which is not as strong as it could be, I suppose. But there's a lot of good things, that the NFL does for its players that would not have happened but for the Players Association. And then, making $250,000 a year, more than that, as a senator. And, all of her investments and everything like that. A millionaire telling you, however much money you make, that you should be upset that a couple who makes $80,000 a year can retire. Like, how, that is so freaking gross that she wants you to be upset at somebody making $80,000 a year if they can retire a few years early. Like, why are we not upset at the millionaires and billionaires who have gotten all of these tax cuts from the Republican administrations instead of taking that money and making it so that maybe more people can retire early? Or at least more people can retire at the normal retirement age. That's the people that we should be upset about. We should be upset about the people, the owners of these multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporations in Alabama who are exploiting our people, who are paying them poverty wages, or wages even that aren't poverty, but then, paying them decent wages, but making them work in unsafe working conditions, not giving them a voice on the job, and taking so much of the profits that we generate here in Alabama, companies like Hyundai, Mercedes, Toyota, taking the profits that we generate here in Alabama and then sending them off out of state so that some shareholder can make more money. Like, those are the people that we should be mad at. You should not be mad at an early retiree couple who makes $84,000 a year and who then might, for a couple of years, get subsidized health insurance before they get on Medicare. Like, that's crazy that somebody like that is trying to make you upset as somebody who makes $80,000 a year. That's just wild to me. And, look, I think some people are falling for it, right? I think some people are falling for it, which makes me sad. 844-899-TVLR is the phone number, 844-899-8857 if you would like to call in. Interested in hearing your thoughts on this. Like, do you think that it's bad that a couple who has worked their whole life might be able to retire 2 or 3 years early and then get subsidized health insurance until they can get on Medicare? Is that a bad thing? I don't think so. 844-899-8857 if you'd like to call in. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us in the chat. Johnny is a Teamster out of Local 767. Matt in the chat said they've had 15 years to come up with a health plan alternative. Nothing, nada. Yeah, that's funny. Well, and the reason that the Republicans do not have a healthcare alternative to the ACA is because the ACA is a Republican plan, right? That's the dirty little secret that they don't like to tell you. Why is the ACA ultimately, it's better than what we had before, but ultimately it's still a really, really bad deal. Why is it so bad? Why are healthcare costs so high? Well, part of the reason is because it was a Republican plan that relies too much on the market. And other countries where they don't have these problems, they have a single payer health insurance system, or the government runs all the hospitals and stuff. And there's like very, very few places for private actors. And ultimately a lot of their healthcare stuff is they have less of a role for the market to play. And we allow the market to run wild in our system, and look where it gets us. Not in a great place. And, look, you can identify that the ACA is a Republican, conservative, market-oriented plan by just knowing anything about the ACA and seeing, like, what are the mechanisms that it wants to accomplish its goals. It's through markets and incentives and things like that. But some people are going to hear me say that, and they're going to be shocked because they've never heard that before, and they're not going to believe me, and maybe they don't understand things about markets and incentives. Well, It came out of the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation is the conservative think tank that created Project 2025. Guess what? They also created the Affordable Care Act. And Mitt Romney ran a state-level version of it in Massachusetts before he tried to run for president. And that's basically where Obama got the idea. Benjo says, ask your doctor if insurance is a total crap show. Yeah, I'm sure they would say yes. Huntsville Dimworker says other countries treat without questions, even about citizenship, provide recuperation help and follow up better, and have vastly better outcomes. Obviously, removing the for-profit motivation entirely is key. Yeah, I agree. Union Gus says Labor Notes podcast yesterday was about the FU Network's letter about what else is at stake. It's also about dismantling agencies and consolidating power in the executive branch. Yep. Union Gus also says $84,000 in any major metro is so little. Yeah, I mean, $84,000 in Alabama is like fine, right? If you're a couple and together you bring in $84,000, you are not living large, but in most of the state of Alabama, like, you will be fine, but you're not rich. And that's what's so frustrating about, I mean, she's literally trying to gin up class resentment against middle class retirees. It's so crazy. Huntsville Dimworker says 1 in a million Katie Britt, because she is headed for similar territory, she thinks. By the way, they killed off the Walmart greeter position, says Union Gus, replaced it with one that only sometimes greets and does more work stocking and working the floor, slashing the waste. I still see lots of greeters. I don't often go into Walmart, but when I do, I typically see a greeter. Worse, the greeter position is now classified as security loss and prevention. Yeesh. Oh, that's bad. Could you imagine being paid like basically minimum wage to be a greeter and be asked to like chase down thieves? Don't get paid enough for it. TWY says something cheap eggs, something Bay of America, something illegal, something but Biden, et cetera. Yeah, that's how it goes, right? When you have these conversations with folks, that is typically how it goes. It's very frustrating. So let me know your thoughts, 844-899-TVLR, or you can find us on Facebook and YouTube and talk to us in the chat. Joe is in the Facebook chat. Good morning, Joe. Appreciate you tuning in there as always. 844-899-TVLR is the phone number. We got an email from a teacher here in Alabama that I thought was interesting, and I always love getting emails from listeners. TVLR.fm/contact is where you can send those emails. And this teacher was asking about basically what our thoughts were on, is there any shot for teachers organizing in the state of Alabama? This teacher talks about how they came from a different part of the country and the union was a lot stronger there than the AEA is here. Talks about how public sector employees in the state of Alabama are prohibited from collective bargaining, et cetera, and how, it's like really, really hard. And so they go into teaching is really hard. They go into, they spend a little bit of time talking about how this person says they're almost ready to give it up and call it a day. They say that, that the cost of living has increased a lot here. House payment has increased 75%. Property taxes have doubled. That they didn't get a raise this year. They said that at their school they lost 21 teachers last year. That all sounds bad. Talking about how the new teachers typically don't even last a year in some cases. And yeah, like just how things are really, really bad. And so obviously, Adam used to be a teacher. Adam used to work for the AEA for some amount of time. And so he's not here this morning. He is he's got some travel that he had to do, but he did leave us a voicemail, kind of riffing a little bit on this email. We're going to respond to it in a little bit more detail when he returns, but wanted to play this email or this voicemail from Adam responding in part to this email. Let's play this clip.
Hey, this is Adam. I know that we received an email from a local teacher about organizing, and I really am excited to have a conversation about that. I want to dive a lot deeper into that conversation when I'm back in studio with you, Brother Jacob. But I just wanted to mention a couple of things. First, they should definitely be following labor notes and be reading up on organizing and how to do it. But, you know, there are a few things to consider. Do you want to work within the established institutions, which in this case would be the AEA or the Alabama Education Association, or do you want to do something separate? Huntsville does not have a chapter of the AFT, American Federation of Teachers, unlike Birmingham and Mobile County and Jefferson County. So that is an option. Same with organizing independently. But it's all going to start with having one-on-one conversations and finding other people who are like-minded and building a list of like-minded folks at your school and across your district. So that is the first step, regardless of the path you choose. Have one-on-one conversations, listen to your colleagues, see what issues resonate with them, and see what kind of appetite they have to actually take action and to build some sort of enduring organization. So I'm really looking forward to diving into this topic a lot once I'm back in studio. But I just wanted to plug that. If you're not already following labor notes, you should. It will be a good resource, not just for your training, but to connect with other activists and teachers who've been doing this organizing for some time. But remember, workers have been organizing since the ancient pharaohs of Egypt. So it is possible. Do not give up hope. Do not give into despair. We can always organize as working people, and I know that you can do it too. So stay in touch with us, and we'll talk about it further. Solidarity forever, y'all.
Appreciate that voicemail. And yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit more. And if somebody wants to call in and have a dialogue with him about, educator organizing in the state of Alabama, we'd love to do that. When he gets back in, he's going to be gone next week too, so he'll be back on the 8th. There was a event in West Virginia about a month ago, I think now, and Camp Solidarity at the West Virginia Mine Wars Museum. And so they had a bunch of different workshops and stuff. And one of the and there was a small portion of a workshop where a firefighter union leader talked about how to win in non-collective bargaining states. And so I've been sitting on this clip for a little while. I got it from Chris Garlock, friend of the show, leader in the Labor Radio Podcast Network, which we are proud to be a part of. And so I wanted to play this for you from this firefighter union leader because it's relevant to the question that was asked to us in the voicemail. Let's go ahead and play this clip about how to win in non-collective bargaining states from a firefighter union leader.
We talk about dues because we want to ensure you that this is a profound return on investment when you join our organization, when you join our union. Transactional dues are those things that you can put your finger on. Right? Now, keep in mind we're in the non-collective bargaining environment, so you can't pick up the contract and say, this is what you get. Like, we don't have the ability to do that. The contract, really, it's the physical manifestation of struggle and sacrifice for the decades before you. That's what your union contract is, right? And if you can sell it like that. But when you don't have that physical object, when you don't have that, you have to have some other transactional options to your membership fee, to your dues. For us, the easy ones are like unionplus.org. Our union, the firefighters, we have our own financial core that has some wealth management products. This is products and services. You have to have those. And I think especially sort of sometimes in the left labor space, we always want to be normal rate, right? But we have to provide a good quality service to our members. And for us in the non-collective bargaining environment, our own local, we've built these out over a period of a decade where when our members retire, we have a retirement specialist separate from the city that ensures they're getting the full amount of their retirement because, weird, sometimes HR doesn't do a good job, right? So we have a full retirement benefit for our members. We have obviously representation. We now have civil service, which we won a couple years ago at the General Assembly for our city. And so we provide representation, legal representation when they go through the Civil Service Board. We have an emergency benevolent fund that I'll talk a little bit more about, where if somebody's got an acute financial hardship, we can provide them with funding to get through. So we have all of these items. For us, if you're a line of duty death at our job, your kids you got one kid, you got 8 kids. Firefighters can be very prolific. Those kids are going to get 10 grand in scholarship, right? So we have profound benefits of membership, because sometimes people are going to come to you and they just want to know the dollars and cents, especially like new hires. We're getting kids that are 20 to 25 years old. They already have a child themselves. They've just bought a home. They could not get the new Silverado, right, when they got hired, so they're in a financial crunch. We have to provide some kind of return on investment. We talk about that, but we don't lead with that, because when you lead with that, you create customers. And I'm not interested in creating customers. What do customers do when they find a better deal? They go someplace else, right? So we spend a lot of time and have a lot of educational material about those things that are tangible products, the transaction. You put dues in your union's hand and your union gives you this stuff, right? But we also talk a lot, and we really lead with the transformational piece of this, is that through our union, we can make it better and safer for us and our families. Our union we connect our union to the lifestyle that our incumbent members have. It's because of our union that we won these pay raises at City Council, right? So we talk about what we do together. That's always the lead foot for us. What we do together to make our job better and safer. We're the heart and soul of the job. You got a sick kid, it's the union that's going to do the meal train at the hospital, right? God forbid you have some kind of our members who have had real tragedy. The fire department of the city doesn't do the fundraisers. That's not their job, right? I'm not dogging them out in this sense, but it's our job. It's our job to take care of each other. And we got to put those structures in place so it's not just this amorphous idea like, we got you, we'll take care of you if something bad happens. Like, no, this is how we do it. These are the things that we have available to you and your family if the worst case scenario strikes.
So there you go. Some good thoughts there about the importance of just being good and efficient administratively, and making sure that your members know about the benefits that attain to union membership is important for building your union. But then, really emphasizing the organizing aspect of it, about how the union is us, how the union can't do anything. Our union can do something. We can do something. The union, not a separate thing. We have to be coming together to build a better workplace, lobby in the state capitol, stuff like that. And even though the AEA is in many ways not very strong, it has been effective at lots of things. And so you can make it effective in other things as well. So, hopefully that's a good sort of teaser about how we're thinking about your question. Thank you so much for the question, and we'll respond in more detail when Adam gets back. If you have any thoughts on that, 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. We're going to take a break here momentarily. When we come back, we're going to be talking about updates to the Chattanooga Volkswagen UAW negotiations. We're also going to be talking about the TVA and more. So stay tuned, folks. You are listening to the Valley Labor Report. We'll be right back. Again, that phone number is 844-899-TVLR. See you after this.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for the Valley Labor Report comes from the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers Union. Learn more by visiting www.ifpte.org.
Are you looking for a better future, a career that can have you set for life, and to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself? If you are, then consider a skilled trades apprenticeship with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. The work of IUPAT is all around us, from the industrial painters who work on the bridges to drywall finishers, floor coverers, the glazers who install the glass in our skylines, and so much more. With an IUPAT apprenticeship, you earn while you learn and receive benefits while learning the trade, including a pension. We provide world-class education free of charge. That's right, no student debt. Our starting salaries for apprentices that graduate is above the national median salary with benefits for entire families. And you have the flexibility to take your trade wherever you'd like in the country to work. IUPAT District Council 77 covers our entire region, so give Adam Booth a call at 205-603-3142 for more information. Again, that phone number is 205-603-3142. Come build a better future with us today and join IUPAT.
We're the nurses, firefighters, and claims representatives that help keep our government services running. We respond to natural disasters. We care for our nation's veterans, and we investigate discrimination in the workplace. We are federal and D.C. government workers, and we are proud to serve the American people. Working in more than 70 agencies across the government, we know we can fulfill our mission because our union has our back. Learn more at afge.org. Paid for by the American Federation of Government Employees, AFL-CIO.
Since 1889, the National Association of Letter Carriers has protected the rights of city carriers as they deliver the mail and offer support for their community. The Alabama State Association of Letter Carriers makes their legislative voices heard when it comes to issues involving the U.S. Postal Service and the working members of the union. The National Association of Letter Carriers has been longtime supporters of the Muscular Dystrophy Association and the Stamp Out Hunger Food Drive. This message is sponsored by the Alabama Association of Letter Carriers. To learn more, visit NALC.org. Unite Here is also a supporter of the Valley Labor Report. They are a labor union that represents 300,000 working people across Canada and the United States. Their members work in the hotel, gaming, food service, manufacturing, textile, distribution, laundry, transportation, and airport industries. You can learn more about Unite Here at unitehere.org.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
A battle in the heart of Alabama caught our attention. Coal miners in one community, they've been on strike now for months.
Working as long as 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in some of the most dangerous conditions.
I really think that the labor movement is the single greatest force for democracy in the history of the United States.
The story of Alabama is a story of not just resilience, but of militancy.
I say no contract, you say no code. No contract, no contract.
If we ain't all free, ain't none of us free.
You're listening to Alabama's only union talk radio show, The Valley Labor Report, with Adam Keller and Jacob Morrison.
That's right, folks. This is the Valley Labor Report, broadcasting from the mountains of Tennessee to the bayous of Louisiana, online and on the radio from the heart of the Tennessee Valley, the Spice Radio Studios in Huntsville, Alabama. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host Adam Keller is out today, but we've still got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about what happened last week in Southern labor. We're going to be talking about the latest in the UAW Volkswagen Chattanooga negotiations. If you are a Volkswagen worker in Chattanooga, we would love to hear from you. That number is 844-899-TVLR. That's 844-899-8857. We'll also be talking about the TVA. If you get your energy from the TVA, which is basically everybody that's listening to me right now, at least on the radio. If you get your energy from the TVA, interested in how you are receiving all of the TVA news, again, you can call us at 844-899-TVLR. We'll be talking about all of that on the program today. If you haven't gotten enough of us by the time that we wrap up here on the radio, or if you just want to see what we're up to throughout the week, you can find us anywhere you find anything online, in particular at our website, tvlr.fm. But we are also on YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts, all at the Valley Labor Report. Just a reminder, your support helps us stay on the air. Our largest single source of funding comes directly from our listeners. So if you want to become a sustaining donor to the program or make a one-time donation, you can go to tvlr.fm/donate or patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. We've got a bunch of really cool merch for sale at tvlr.fm/store. That is tvlr.fm/store. We have stickers, shirts, and hats. And finally, if you're a member of a union, then think about getting your local to sponsor the show. We could not do it without the support of our union sponsors, so reach out to us for more details on that. And since Adam is not here, I will also add a disclaimer that any viewpoints or opinions expressed in this program belong solely to their author and do not necessarily represent any organization or sponsor. So we welcome all of our listeners, whether you are on YouTube, Facebook, WVNN, WZZA, WHIV, WGOW, Means TV, or through your favorite podcasting app. We're proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network and encourage our listeners to check that out as well. Speaking of Means TV, if you are not a subscriber to Means TV, you can be one with our promo code, which gets you 20% off your first month or your first year if you get an annual membership. You can go to means.tv and subscribe with the promo code TVLR. Promo code TVLR gets you 20% off your first month on Means TV or your first year. Means TV has lots of great general entertainment. They've got some original animated stuff, lots of good left-wing political commentary, documentaries. There's a really good union documentary about how poultry plant workers in North Carolina won their union called Union Time. Definitely recommend checking that out. So means.tv, promo code TVLR. And while I'm making announcements, wanted to make sure that I let you know that the Letter Carriers Union, Branch 462 in Huntsville, is going to be hosting a talent show at the Black Umbrella. That's 2400 Hall Avenue, Huntsville, Alabama 35805, on November 1st, 2025, from 7 to 10 p.m. Singers, dancers, comedians, and rappers will perform from 7 to 10. Food will be served. Bar service will be an option, or you can bring your own beer. For ticket information, contact Yamina Foster at 205-587-8653. All proceeds from this talent show will be going to the Muscular Dystrophy Association. All right, so you get a fun night watching a talent show from 7 to 10 p.m. in Huntsville at the Black Umbrella, and all the proceeds go to the Muscular Dystrophy Association. So sounds like a good night. Proceeds will be going to a good cause. The union is hosting it, so check it out. You contact Yamina Foster at 205-587-8653 if you are interested in doing that. Let's go ahead and get to Last Week in Southern Labor. Last Week in Southern Labor is a segment that we do every week because we want to take a look at what workers are up to in the U.S. South. The businesses have their own news releases, and lots of people tune into what businesses are doing, so we want to tune into what workers are doing. Here is what they were doing from October 17th to the 24th. In union elections, the National Labor Relations Board continues to be shut down because of the government shutdown. But workers are still organizing, including 300 workers at 4 of Washington, D.C.'s most popular music venues. They're calling for a card check union election, and they're unionizing to improve safety on the job and increase their wages. The workers are organizing with 3 unions, Unite Here Local 25 and IATSE Locals 22 and 868. In grievances, unfair labor practices, and court cases, the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers, IFPTE, which represents thousands of workers at NASA nationwide, filed a lawsuit against Trump's executive order designating the work of NASA as primarily national security in function, pointing out in part that the law that created NASA actually specifically intended for it not to be involved with national security operations. Michael Sinato has a good roundup of the lawsuits against the Trump administration on behalf of federal workers that's really good at The Guardian, so you should check that out. In strikes and bargaining updates, we got a lot of those this week. Workers at Lockheed Martin in Ocala, Florida, unionized with the United Auto Workers, UAW Local 1821, are voting on a tentative agreement that raises wages by 19.3% over the 5-year life of the contract, plus a $4,000 ratification bonus. A listener wrote in saying that they like the financials but are concerned about some of the work rule changes, so we will see how the members vote. The Teamsters have been fighting UPS on their slow-walking AC in package cars, and UPS now appears to be moving along, now committing to retrofitting 5,000 package cars in the hottest delivery zone by no later than June 1st, 2027. The 5,000 retrofitted vehicles will count towards the company's obligation to provide 28,000 package cars with air conditioning. 3,000 workers at Boeing in St. Louis, Missouri, unionized with the International Association of Machinists, IAM District Lodge 837, are still on strike and would not even vote on one of the company's most recent offers, in particular because it would have allowed for managers to do union work. The company took those poison pills out of the offer, and workers will now be voting on the contract for a 4th time this weekend. The workers have already voted down 3 previous offers from the company, and this offer does not come with a recommendation from the bargaining committee. One of the striking workers testified in front of the U.S. Senate Help Committee about how Boeing's mistreatment and bad faith negotiations are prolonging the strike. 200 members of 5 unions representing Memphis city workers protested in front of the mayor's office, demanding that he negotiate and sign a memorandum of understanding with the unions. Workers at Volkswagen in Chattanooga, Tennessee, unionized with the UAW, are scheduled to take a strike authorization vote next week. The union sent a counteroffer to the company's supposed last, best, and final offer last week. The bargaining committee stated that if the company met the conditions of their counteroffer, the bargaining committee would then recommend workers ratify the contract. If not, they said that the bargaining committee might need to recommend a strike. The vote next week, if they authorize a strike, does not automatically trigger a strike. It would just give the bargaining committee the ability to call a strike if they feel it's necessary. Some workers are trying to make it seem like there's division in the plant over the company's offer, but most credible reporting seems to indicate that workers are unhappy with the deal and would go out on strike. As Starbucks workers continue to try to secure a first contract themselves, they're now planning pickets in dozens of cities nationwide this week, including in Scottsboro, Alabama. In political and legislative updates, after a Loudoun County firefighter's death, the state is expanding the number of cancers covered, thanks to the advocacy of the firefighters union. The shutdown continues and more government services are being halted. Last week, the Federal Railroad Administration said it would no longer I don't think y'all are ready for this one, folks. Last week, the Federal Railroad Administration said it would no longer be investigating new health and safety complaints. Rail unions are sounding the alarm on the issue, saying that this is a gross disservice to rail safety and the American people. Multiple pilots' unions have called for the government to be reopened, with some simply saying that lawmakers need to find a solution, others more specifically calling on lawmakers to support a clean continuing resolution. These statements are being motivated by concern about air traffic controllers being forced to work without pay. Millions of folks came out and took to the streets last week protesting the administration in another round of No Kings protests. Unions participated heavily in them. Most national unions endorsed the protests, and their members went out in force. A furloughed Department of Labor employee and AFGE local president went on ABC News last week to talk about how having OSHA shut down is bad for workers. If you can believe it, it is bad when the agency that is responsible for upholding worker safety and health is shut down. It's bad when that happens. Trump's EEOC is cutting back on protections against discrimination, rolling back the disparate impact rule, which workers have used in the past to get employers to eliminate discriminatory hiring practices. The U.S. Senate held hearings for Trump nominees to the TVA's board of directors. At the hearing, all of the nominees did say they opposed privatization, but most of them left open the possibility of selling off assets of the TVA, which is just privatization in more words. The UAW is celebrating actions taken by the Trump administration to impose a 25% tariffs on heavy trucks, stating that this will significantly benefit their members at Mack Trucks, Volvo, and Daimler across the South and across the country. If we missed anything, let us know about your union updates at tvlr.fm/contact. And just a reminder, as always, the radio segment of Last Week in Southern Labor is truncated. There's probably this week about twice as much, as much stuff as you heard, and then that again is going to be in the newsletter this week. There's a lot of stuff that I wasn't able to get to. So if you want to get the exhaustive version of Last Week in Southern Labor, you're going to want to get the newsletter. You can subscribe to the newsletter at tvlr.fm. tvlr.fm is where you can get the exhaustive version of Last Week in Southern Labor. In the YouTube chat, Union Gus says Union Time is also available via Canopy, a streaming service that lots of libraries have access to. Yeah, Union Time is a really good documentary. Recommend folks watch it if they haven't. And then Union Gus also says, I thought that's what Space Force was for. And yeah, you would think that, and this is relative to the IFPTE's lawsuit about NASA being described as a primarily national security organization, and that's why workers there can't have collective bargaining. And yeah, you would think that's why, if we're going to be doing national security space stuff, that is properly housed within the Department of Defense. And that's actually literally what the law says, right? If you actually look at the law that creates NASA, it says, this is a civilian agency meant for peaceful space research and exploration, right? So it says specifically in the law, if you want to do war stuff in space, you got to do it outside NASA. NASA's not the place for space war stuff. Do that somewhere else, maybe in the Department of Defense, but not in NASA. That's not what NASA's meant for. But, the law doesn't matter anymore. The president can just do whatever he wants. So, let's talk about Volkswagen workers in Chattanooga. And I know that, we're on the air in Chattanooga, so I'm sure that there are Volkswagen workers that are hearing me. I would love to hear from you. 844-899-TVLR is the phone number. That is 844-899-8857. You can also find us on Facebook and YouTube and contribute to, the program in the chat. So if you have... So if you're interested in talking to us about that, then, let us know. And we would love to take your call. And we do actually, and I'm not sure, I'm having difficulty getting into the screener thing, Jeff. So what's the area code of the caller that's on the line now? Okay, let's go ahead and bring this caller on the air from a 256 area code and see what they are, see what they're calling about. I guess if it's a 256 area code, probably not calling about the Chattanooga UAW stuff. But if it's not that, then we can keep the call quick. 256 area code. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Well, hey, it's Dwayne, Jacob. How are you doing?
Hey, Dwayne.
I'm not
good.
calling about the Chattanooga. I just wanted to touch base a little bit about the Alabama solution being released.
Yes.
And ask if you saw it.
I have not seen it yet, Dwayne. I've got it on my list, and I want to watch it. But for those of you who don't know, the Alabama Solution is a documentary about the prison system in Alabama on HBO. It has been really well received. I've heard lots of great things about it. If you're in Alabama, you should try to attend a screening of it. If you can, and if you can't do that, then you should watch it, just at your home, because I have heard really good things about it. And Alabama's prison system is just really, really terrible. And just to illustrate for folks who don't understand how bad Alabama's prison systems are, I read a book recently about Alabama's prison systems written by Matthew Vernon, I think is his name, Matthew Wayland Vernon. And he talked about how in the 1980s there was a lot of controversy about Alabama's prisons because, and Dwayne, I'm sure you know the numbers better than I do, but it was something like 30 people were dying in Alabama's prisons every year, and that was enough to create really big concern across the state and across the country, triggering Department of Justice investigations and stuff like that. 30 people a year dying in Alabama's prisons, something like that. Over the last several years, that number has been something like 300 people per year dying in Alabama's prisons. Alabama's prisons have the highest mortality rate of any prison system in the country. It's terrible. I think the people who are in control of Alabama's prison systems, if they are religious people, they need to be concerned about the state of their soul, and they need to repent because it is wicked what we are doing to prisoners in the state of Alabama. I mean, it's very concerning. So yes, Alabama Solution is on HBO. Yep. Check it out if you haven't. Dwayne, what else do you have on that?
Well, I was going to tell you now, the person that was in charge of it, the Commissioner Dunn was over the Department of Corrections at that time. He was
in
much worse than the person that, well, not the 80s, but the time now where here's something that you may not not recognize, okay? Federal Judge Myron Thompson did rule cruel and unusual punishment. But there's no speedy relief for that. But I bet you don't know why. Congress passed a law that you have to give the states time to do things. You can't just have an immediate relief. So the judge is forced by federal law, congressional passed law, that you've got to let them build a prison. You've got to give them this much time. You have to. And it's terrible. As far as I'm thinking, it's terrible that you are really, really under cruel and unusual punishment, and this can continue on for 7 years.
Yeah.
Nothing getting better, person still being hurt. And I want to tell everybody now, the main person, there's about 5 deaths that happen in this documentary, but the main person's injury that you see pictures of is so atrocious that you will not even believe or fathom it, okay? And And the guard that's mainly the one accused of doing this, that even, states that they did it, gets promoted by the state of Alabama. So that's, just something to know. And I have been to churches in different places. And remember, I was Stacey George's that ran for governor, and he is the bald person that worked at the worked at Limestone Prison, if you saw the commercials. And he has been to speak at Arkansas to the legislature who do want to do better things there for their prisons. And it looks like there'll be some major networks maybe doing interviews next week. So look out for those, okay?
All right.
Everybody does need to see it and call and pray and maybe even call the Department of Corrections, because Commissioner Ham is more of a Christian person with a heart than the person that's actually in the documentary now. Something may be able to be done because he is a better person as far as I'm concerned, as far as what you were talking about.
Yeah.
I wanted to say one other thing, Jacob.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you realize that with the No Kings last week, if you had not spoke to Treadaway, there may not have been a No Kings. Do you get what I'm saying here? He would have had the right to just arrest anybody standing there. Do you remember?
I do. I remember talking to Treadaway about his bill. I don't think we were the only people I don't think that we were the reason that he didn't get his bill through,
well,
but I do.
I kind of do, because I noticed he completely changed his whole attitude when you really got to the nitty-gritty. Yes, he completely did. It did change things, I believe, even in the legislature and the way he was coming at everything. You really made a difference there. And anybody should go back through the archives to see your interview. It's one of the best things that you could possibly watch, letting anybody have it at an interview that deserved it. But anyway, that's what I wanted to say. And
I appreciate it. I enjoyed that interview with Treadaway, and mostly it was just me asking questions about, okay, well, like, what is the logical conclusion of this bill that you're trying to get passed? Seems bad to me. I don't know. What do you think? But yeah, I appreciate that, Dwayne.
And here's the thing: your forcefulness of really meaning what you were saying was fantastic. But anyway, thanks a whole lot.
Yep. Thanks, Dwayne. Good to hear from you. Yeah, check it out. Alabama Solution, HBO. As I said to him, I, to my great shame, have not seen it yet, but I will see it. But I hear lots of good things about it, and I've read books about Alabama's prisons, and I kind of get the gist, So if you don't get the gist about how bad Alabama's prisons are, you should check it out. And look, right? People talk about. I talk about Alabama's prisons with people, and their empathy is just not there, because they say, oh, well, they're in prison, so they must have done something wrong, so screw them, right? I don't care what the condition, and that's like actually how people feel about some of this, some people in there. And no doubt there are people in Alabama's prisons who have done heinous things, and it is easy to think that way, right? But for one, just as a fact of the matter, are most of the people who are in Alabama's prisons like terrible, terrible people who have done unforgivable things? No, actually, the majority of people who are in Alabama's prisons are nonviolent. The offense for which they are in prison was a nonviolent offense. Okay, number one. Number two, even the violent offenses, most of them, the vast majority of them, are not murder. Right? And so they will get out. And so even if you don't care about them as people or the conditions that they're living in, like you think, okay, somebody committed felony assault on somebody else, and they inflicted a lot of pain on somebody, and so you don't care. Like, it doesn't bother you that they are being forced to live in unconstitutionally torturous position. Right? You don't care about that. Well, guess what? If you commit felony assault, you will get out at some point. And that's what everybody wants, right? Nobody wants to live in a world where you hurt somebody, even you hurt somebody and you hurt somebody greatly, and then you spend literally the rest of your life in prison, right? Everybody believes in second chances, even for actually physically violent people, right? We can't just throw people in jail and lock away the key. And so you commit felony assault, you're going to be out in 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 years. And so then the question is not a question of empathy. Do you feel bad about the conditions in which this person has lived? It's actually a question of your own safety and the world that you want to live in, right? Because when that person gets out, the question is, will they be better than when they came in, right? And in Alabama's prisons, the answer to that is obviously no. Basically, nobody comes out of Alabama's prisons in better shape than they went in. That's why the recidivism rate is so high. That's why there are so many problems with folks who come out of prison, is because the prison system makes them worse. It destroys their mental health. It creates mental health problems in these people. And then they go out and then they reoffend. And it makes your society, the one that you live in, less safe because we take a punitive approach to prison rather than a rehabilitative approach to prison. So even if you can't muster the, I feel bad for people, which, if you can't muster that, you should do some self-reflection on that. Why can't I feel some level of empathy for people in prison? If you're a Christian, Jesus literally tells you to do that, to care about the prisoner. So if you can't muster that within yourself, you should kind of do some self-reflection. Maybe pray about that a little bit. But that's your internal deal, right? You got to deal with that yourself. I can't deal with that for you. So even if you can't do that, you got to think rationally about your own safety. Are you going to be safer in a world where we throw people into a system that kills hundreds of people a year and so therefore is super deleterious to the health of everybody else and then spits them out worse than they come in? Does that make you safer? The answer is obviously no, right? If you have 2 brain cells you can rub together, the answer to that is no. So we got to make Alabama's prisons better. We got to make them actually rehabilitative. Okay, let's talk about Chattanooga. Well, actually, we're at 10:30. Jeez, spent more time on that than I thought that I would. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back and talk about UAW Volkswagen negotiations in Chattanooga. You're listening to the Valley Labor Report. 844-899-TVLR is the phone number. 844-899-8857. Give us a call, Volkswagen workers. We'll be right back. The Laborers International Union of North America, LIUNA Local 366, is proudly recruiting North Alabama local workers to work construction and nuclear plant maintenance. If you're interested, please contact April at our training center to start the process at 256-904-1753. No experience is needed. We offer free training, but you must be able to pass a background check and a drug test. Local hiring that grows our community with good-paying jobs that have benefits is our mission. Live better, work union, Local 366, feel the power. The Valley Labor Report is also supported by the Communication Workers of America. Learn more at cwa-union.org.
Support for this program is provided by the International Association for Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama. Learn more at iamaw44.org.
The Valley Labor Report is also sponsored by the United Automobile, Aerospace, and Agricultural Implement Workers of America, better known as the UAW. They are one of the largest and most diverse unions in North America, with members in virtually every sector of the economy. UAW-represented workplaces range from multinational corporations, small manufacturers, and state and local governments, to colleges and universities, hospitals, and private, nonprofit organizations. The UAW has more than 400,000 active members and more than 580,000 retired members in the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. You can learn more about the UAW and join at uaw.org. The Valley Labor Report is also sponsored by Labor Notes. Labor Notes is a media and organizing project that has been the voice of union activists who want to put the movement back in the labor movement since 1979. You can learn more about Labor Notes at labornotes.org.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for this program also comes from the Mid-South Council of Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. Learn more at rwdsu.info.
Union leaders, do you want a powerful website and mobile app built just for your members? The Union Active system, created by Unions America, makes it easy to share news and documents, send alerts, and keep your members engaged anytime, anywhere. Trusted by thousands of unions, Union Active streamlines communication so you can focus on what matters most, your members. With real-time updates, secure messaging, and custom features built for unions, you'll keep your members informed and engaged 24/7. Get Union Active today. Visit unionactive.com to learn more. Union Active, the ultimate website and communication system for unions.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Labor creates all wealth. All wealth should go to labor. You're listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller, but he's not here today. He is traveling. So appreciate y'all hanging out with me by myself. Of course, we have our board op in the booth. Appreciate him. 844-899-TVLR is the phone number. 844-899-8857. That is 844-899-8857. Okay, so UAW Volkswagen negotiations. You all know Volkswagen presented what they called a last best and final offer. Offers that are presented as last best and final are never actually last best and final. They're just a negotiation tactic. The UAW sent their own counterproposal back to the company, and they said, look, if you accept this counterproposal, we will recommend ratification of this counterproposal. That counterproposal included, it addressed where the company's offer fell short. And they say that the company's offer falls short in 4 key areas. Number 1 is job security. They say, the UAW says that Volkswagen's proposal does not include the language needed to protect workers from plant closures, outsourcing, or the sale of the Chattanooga facility. These protections cost the company nothing, but mean everything to workers and their families. And there was actually an interview in the Chattanooga Times Free Press where a worker who is, apparently a sort of anti-union guy, was talking about how, I've never worried about job security in my 15 years of employment at Volkswagen. Well, if that's the case, and there is really no concern about job security from Volkswagen, then Volkswagen should agree to the job security language put forward by the UAW. Right? If there is actually not going to be anything to worry about, then just agree to the language and it's not going to cost you anything, right? But as it stands, the company wants to put all of the risk of job closures or market downturns, all of that risk on the workers. Why should workers shoulder all of the risk? Why shouldn't some of that risk be borne by the company? And, that's why I just want to say a thing on risk for a second, right? Because whenever you ask questions like, why should shareholders make so much freaking money? They say, oh, well, shareholders have to make, they have to make so much money because they risk their investment. Because of the risk that they're taking. And that's why workers don't need to make so much money, because they're not taking a risk. And that is so insulting to working people, especially like blue collar manual labor workers like we have at Volkswagen. Look, I have always been an office worker, right? I've always had a white collar job. I have been very fortunate in that. I'm still a worker. I'm still part of the working class. I work for my living. I don't own, right? I don't make money off of my assets. I make money off of my labor. So I'm still a worker, still a member of the working class. But obviously, working in white collar work and working in a manufacturing plant are different. And the risk in working in a manufacturing plant is not only, especially without this job security language, you have the risk of market downturns and layoffs and things like that. You also have the physical safety risk, right? And so, the people that say that, oh, well, we got to give shareholders all of this risk. Well, all this money because they take so much risk. I actually think that workers take more risk than shareholders do. Because let's play it out for a second. What is literally the worst thing that can happen to somebody who invests in a company and takes that risk on? Well, they lose their investment. And what does that mean? That means they have to make their money from some other way, like perhaps working. So literally the worst case scenario for a capitalist is that they lose all their money and they have to become a worker. That's just feels like not actually that much of a risk. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm getting distracted. The UAW says that Volkswagen's offer falls short in 4 key areas. Job security, we talked about that. Affordable health care. Volkswagen's proposal falls far short of the affordable, high-quality health care that's standard for 150,000 UAW auto workers across the country. Workers deserve equal treatment, not higher costs. Wages that keep up with the cost of living. Volkswagen can solve this problem today by simply signing off on the proposal they already offered, so workers' paychecks don't lose value as costs rise. And so look here, this thing about the wages, it seems like, let me know if I'm wrong here. I don't have just a whole lot of contact with people inside the plant. So let me know if I'm wrong, 844-899-8857. But it seems like the wages are not so much, the 20% general wage increase over the 4-year contract. That seems like that's not like the sticking point. It seems like the UAW wants a better COLA than is being offered. And for more direct, more direct cost of living adjustments to account for inflation. And so it seems like the 20% over 4 years is more or less fine. We just have to adjust the COLA formula. So Volkswagen should adjust the COLA formula to take more of that risk off of the workers. And then number 4, respect and dignity on the job. Volkswagen are fighting for a union contract that ensures members can use their earned PTO, are protected from punitive drug testing, and have adequate breaks to recover from the physical demands of the job. So the UAW sent a counterproposal to the company on October 15th, addressing 14 remaining critical items centered on those 4 pillars. And so, as I said, if Volkswagen accepts the counteroffer, the union will recommend ratification. If not, members will prepare for a strike authorization vote and further action as needed. So a strike authorization vote has been scheduled for next week. For Monday, Tuesday, I believe. Monday, Tuesday is when they're going to be voting on the strike authorization. And the strike authorization vote does not trigger a strike automatically. A strike authorization vote just authorizes the bargaining committee to call a strike if the bargaining committee feels it's necessary. And that's another thing that has been very frustrating to me, is I'm seeing a lot of people in Chattanooga, Republicans, business people, talking about how the UAW needs to represent Chattanooga workers instead of national agenda, blah, 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 blah. Well, they're doing that, right? They're having a strike authorization vote. And I mean, constitutionally, the UAW cannot take people out on strike if they don't give the UAW authorization to do that. So the workers in the plant are going to be voting on Monday and Tuesday to give the bargaining committee authority to call a strike if the bargaining committee feels like it's necessary. And again, the bargaining committee is made up of primarily workers from Chattanooga, right? So, these Republican politicians, these business people just need to shut the hell up and let the workers decide what they feel like is necessary and what they're willing to do to fight for a better life. And if the workers in the plant don't believe that Volkswagen's offer is good enough, and as a fact of the matter, it is not as good as workers on the other side of the state working for GM and Spring Hill make. That's just a fact. Is it okay for Volkswagen to pay less to Tennessee workers in Chattanooga than GM pays its workers in Spring Hill, Tennessee? That's for Volkswagen workers in Chattanooga to decide, right? They get to decide that. And so they're going to be voting. And so Republican politicians saying, the UAW needs to represent Chattanooga workers. They're doing that. They're doing that. So you should shut up and stop trying to spread this narrative that they're not doing that, because they are. So, I'll obviously be watching this closely and looking forward to seeing what the results are. And if you're a Volkswagen worker in Chattanooga listening to this after we are off the air, after the segment is over, after the show's over, you can call in at 844-899-TVLR, 844-899-8857, and leave us a voicemail at any time throughout the week. So. Is your co-host okay? Yeah, he's fine. He is. He's having a great time. Actually, he's going to a Eugene Debs Foundation award ceremony in Indiana. So he's taking a holy pilgrimage to Eugene Debs' house. Union Gus says, "What has the union ever done for me?" asks man on weekend. Yeah. A union has, and then Miguel says a union has never done anything good for UPS, the biggest union job ever. That's crazy. Like, that's just factually not true. Obviously not true, if you know anything about anything. Blake the Kirk says, so our host hasn't put his hands on tools and created anything with his hands other than paperwork in how long? I mean, like I said, I've been a white collar worker basically my entire career. I spent like 1 month doing construction work for and not even real, I was just a hand on the construction site, right? For a family friend that owns a construction business. And so I did a little bit of hand work for like $8 an hour one summer. And I also, for probably the better part of a decade, I did the landscaping and stuff for my church, but I didn't get paid for that. But all of my jobs, and then I worked as a grocery clerk for one summer. But other than that, I've been a legal assistant, a project manager, and workforce development person. So, yeah, it's all been white-collar work. But, what's the point? I don't know. I don't know what the point is in that question. Been union the majority of that time. Been a member of AFGE, and still am a member of AFGE. 844-899-8857. 844-899-TVLR. Brandon says, that's really cool that Adam is doing that. I believe that is outside of Indianapolis. That's the area that Eugene Debs is from. it's Terre Haute, Indiana. Terre Haute, Indiana. So I don't know how close Terre Haute is to Indianapolis. I'm not familiar with the geography of Indiana. But yeah, I'm really jealous for sure. It's going to be a good. He's going to have a great weekend. The Eugene V. Debs Foundation, I think, is giving an award to Bernie Sanders and Sarah Nelson. Maybe Sarah Nelson is speaking there, as is Mark Dimmenstein. So lots of really cool people are going to be there. So, but I'm here holding down the fort while Adam's having a great time, and I'm not salty about it at all. Let's get to Boss Watch, folks. Over in Tennessee, the Chattanooga Times Free Press has an article about a Chattanooga-based logistics company facing a lawsuit by a former employee alleging unpaid overtime. In a federal complaint on September 12th, Chattanooga resident Philip Dennis alleged that Trident Transport did not pay him overtime when he worked more than 40 hours in a week. For example, Dennis estimated that he worked 56 hours in one week and 55 hours in another week, all without overtime pay. Dennis was employed as an account manager and a sales manager in Chattanooga from September 2021 to October 2023. The law firm representing him is pursuing the Trident case as a collective action lawsuit under federal law. So that's an interesting case. You know, the Fair Labor Standards Act creates exemptions for overtime requirements, and those exemptions are if you have to meet two things at once, right? So you have to both be making more money than, I think it's like $50,000 in a year now, something like that. If you are making over $50,000 in a year and you have some level of executive control over your work, then you can be exempted from overtime. And so obviously that second thing is a lot trickier to identify than the first thing. And so this guy being an account manager and a sales manager makes me wonder if he actually does qualify for overtime, because presumably he would be making more than $50,000 in a year. And if he's an account manager and a sales manager, he could have enough like executive responsibilities that he would be exempt from the Fair Labor Standards Act. But I don't know, I don't know. He's got a lawyer representing him, and presumably these law firms don't take cases for like no reason. So I suppose we'll see, read the Chattanooga Times Free Press for updates. Jordan Barab has a really good article about workplace heat and the toll of heat injuries, and like the things that you don't think of that heat can contribute to as far as an unsafe working, as far as unsafe working conditions, right? So, most people know if it's hot, you might have a heat stroke. It might lead to kidney disease or other chronic health conditions, right? But Jordan has this article. The article is titled "Workplace Heat: The Hidden Toll of Injuries." It's on his website, jordanbarab.com/confined space. Friend of the show, Jordan Barab, former OSHA official. But he's analyzing a new study out of Harvard titled "A Nationwide Analysis of Heat and Workplace Injuries," published on October 6th in the journal Environmental Health, that shows that high heat contributes to at least 28,000 excess workplace injuries per year. Slips, trips, and falls, as well as cuts and other traumatic injuries. And so that's interesting. There's somebody quoted in the article saying that it's very clear that heat causes more than simply heat illness and, unfortunately, heat fatalities, but it also causes thousands of injuries every year. When you're working in heat, you much more easily make mistakes. And so he talks about why high heat causes more work-related injuries. Studies have shown that elevated temperatures can impair hand-eye coordination, cause postural instability, lead to muscular fatigue, and reduce physical reaction times. Cognitive effects of heat include reduced attention memory, information processing, and overall judgment. Put together, physiological and cognitive impairments increase the risk of workplace injuries, few of which are officially classified as heat injuries. And so that's a really interesting thing, and another reason that stronger workplace heat standards are needed, which the Biden administration was trying to push through, and the Trump administration has stopped. And so no doubt there are going to be people who are killed in the year of our Lord 2025 because the Trump administration paused the OSHA heat standard from the Biden administration. And it didn't have to be that way, right? There are going to be people who die this year that didn't have to die because we didn't institute that workplace heat safety rule. So another really good article to check out from Jordan Barab. As always, he does really good stuff. And then I've got some Union Buster stuff for you. This segment of Boss Watch is Union Busters. It covers national updates, and it is sponsored by Labor Lab. Labor Lab is an employer watchdog organization dedicated to safeguarding the right to organize through unions, collective bargaining, and mutual aid. They do this by combing through reports that Union Busters are required to file with the Department of Labor. So last week, we had several filings. One from Specs Family Partners. We just talked to a guy who was organizing there a couple of weeks ago. They hired this guy, Justin Shoemaker, for $3,000 a day, $2,800 a day, to try to stop people from organizing. Specs Family Partners is like a wine and liquor store. United Site Services in Massachusetts hired the Crossroads Group labor relations consultants for $475 an hour. Northwell Health in New York also hired the same group for $450 an hour. Northwest Fiber in Washington State hired Davis, Grimm, Payne, and Mara for $400 an hour. And in addition, we had a couple of amendments with particularly the Crossroads Labor Relations Group changing their compensation rate from $450 an hour to $475 an hour. These are people that are getting hundreds of dollars an hour to try to persuade workers that they don't need a union. So that to keep workers from getting a $5 an hour raise, they're paying these people hundreds of dollars an hour. Really gross. Really gross. And just as a reminder, due to a lack of enforcement, a lot of these consultants, a lot of these union busters will disregard the law and fail to report their activities. Like, they have to report these activities to the Department of Labor, but there's been a lack of enforcement for years, and especially under the Trump administration, obviously, there's a lack of enforcement. And so some of these consultants are going to disregard the law, and they're not going to report it, or they're going to report it late. Like, a lot of times we see a union election happen, and then the union busters don't file all of their paperwork until after the election is over. The whole thing about filing this paperwork is that workers are supposed to have the knowledge about who is getting paid and how much money they're getting paid to persuade them of against unionization. And so obviously, if you don't file the paperwork until after the election, then it defeats the purpose of the law. But they do that all the time. And it's like, actually, you could be charged criminally and civilly for violating the law in that way. But, the federal government never does that. So because there is such a lack of enforcement, it's crucial for organizers and workers to report suspected persuader activity to the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Labor Management Standards. So if you suspect one of these union busting consultants are in your workplace, then you can reach out to Labor Lab and they will help you file that report. You can contact Labor Lab at contact@laborlab.us. Contact@laborlab.us. And if you do that, let them know you heard about them on the Valley Labor Report, obviously, right? So there you go. That's it for the first half of the program, folks. We really appreciate you tuning in. Find us on Facebook and YouTube and continue listening. We've got a great second half of the show lined up for you. We're going to be talking to a reporter who did a great article in Capital in Maine about the rise of pre-majority unionism in the South. Fascinating piece, and I'm really looking forward to that interview. We're also going to be taking more of your calls. I see we got a caller on the line. We'll take that call right after we go into the second half of the program. So looking forward to hearing from them. If you want to call and get in line, you can do that at 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. And so, yeah, find us on Facebook and YouTube if you want to continue listening to the program. If you don't, though, and you're going to peace out when we go off the radio, just want to let you know that I appreciate you. I appreciate you for spending this hour with us, and I look forward to seeing you again next weekend. And if you get to missing us throughout the week, you can find us online, anywhere you find anything online, at the Valley Labor Report, but in particular at our website, tvlr.fm. We've got a bunch of articles up there. We've got a place to donate. We've got our videos up there. We've got our store where you can buy some cool stuff. So check it out, tvlr.fm. Find us on Facebook and YouTube to continue listening to the program. Otherwise, if you don't do that, we'll see you next week. All right, we're off the radio. Appreciate everybody for staying tuned. Looking forward to the second half of the program. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to be right back. And definitely call in, call in. We don't have a whole lot of guests lined up today, so 844-899-TVLR. Call in if you want, and I'll see you on the other side of this song.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell. How the good old union has come in here to dwell.
This is Overtime, a production of the Valley Labor Report, the largest union talk radio and online news outfit in the South, coming to you from the heart of the Tennessee Valley in the Spice Radio studios in Huntsville, Alabama. We are run by working people and for working people in the South and all over the country. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller. He's out of town today, but we appreciate you spending some time with us. If you'd like to call in, the phone number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. And we do have a caller on the line. Let's bring them on the air. That caller is from a 317 area code. 317 area code. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Zach, and I'm calling from Shelbyville, Indiana.
Zach from Shelbyville, Indiana. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir. Well, I had sent a email to you guys about the strike that's happening at Horseshoe Indianapolis right now. I'm actually one of the dual rates that's actually on the strike line. So I just wanted to, there were some questions that you had asked in the video that you posted a couple days ago, that the person that answered them really didn't answer them that well. So I wanted to reach out to kind of go over that again with you.
Yeah, please do. And so let me know how you would answer those questions, and also explain to people. I think you said your position is a dual rate position. What is your position? Yes. And then talk to us about the strike.
Okay, so my position is a dual rate supervisor, so I deal and I supervise. So depending on how the schedule comes out, they'll have me supervising the tables, or they'll have me dealing on them. That's pretty much my position right now. So at Horseshoe Indianapolis, we are striking for recognition. So we actually don't have a union in place yet. We joined up with Teamsters Local 135, and we filled out the cards. We had the majority. We sent a letter to the property trying to get a date. They pushed back on us about the date we wanted. They said the 17th of October. We said, okay. Well, then fast forward, now the government shut down, right?
Right.
So we sent another letter to them asking them, hey, we, the majority, still want to continue with our date, location, and time. We know the government shut down, but let's go ahead and let's agree upon a neutral third party to conduct this vote for us. So we don't got to worry about waiting for the government to open back up, and we just get it over with.
Right.
They did not respond for quite some time. A lot of the letters that we had kept sending them, they just kept ignoring us. So on October 10th, we decided as the organizing committee to hold a strike vote, see what everyone wanted to do, what the majority was. It was kind of like having a vote without having an official vote in a sense.
Right.
So we actually had a 92% majority vote yes.
Wow.
So pretty much right there for us, that was showing the company, look, 92% of the dealers and the dual rates at this property has said yes. Let's go ahead and let's do the date of October 17th in 7 days to vote, and we'll have a neutral third party. And they completely ignored us again. It's like it's the constant silence from them. They're not responding to us. They're not talking to us. But yet when they're holding meetings, like these little small group meetings, because they hired, I think it's like Literal Middleton or something like that. It's a firm that specializes
Littler
in, like,
Middleton.
union
Yeah.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. Yes. So they started pulling us in like small groups of 6 with a slideshow and some talking points that they probably gave them.
Yep.
And they kept telling us how much they care about us, but yet they can't even respond to us. So we decided as a collective, all the dealers and dual rates, that on the 17th we were going to go on strike at noon, and then we did it at noon. The dealers that were inside pulled their lids. There's a lot of the videos surfacing around the internet right now. They pulled their lids at noon and walked out and went on strike. And so pretty much what we're striking for is better pay, better benefits, better policies. And when I say benefits, I mean most of it is to do with the health care, like the health insurance, and the short-term disability, because last year they changed it without notice, and they went based upon our base pay. So as dealers, most dealers start off at $5.25 an hour, and then for every game they get like a quarter for roulette, a quarter for baccarat, and they get 50 cents for winning craps, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they only get half of their base pay if they go on medical leave or short-term disability. Who can survive off of $3 or $4? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much what we're fighting for right now, and we've been on the line since the 17th now, so I think that's like 8 or 9 days. They're all kind of going together at this point, and we're 24/7, 7 days a week, ticketing.
Do you have any idea what the percentage of people that are striking is? Like, do you have any idea like how many people are scabbing? Is it like 1% or 2%, or is nobody scabbing?
Oh, we have people scabbing for sure. But I will say there are some that are in there still for valid reasons. We have a guy that has cancer, so he's in there because of the insurance.
Mm-hmm.
But he did say that once he does his last radiation treatment, he will be coming outside with us. And the percentages, I mean, I don't actually have a percentage. If I had to like take a guess, I'd probably say like 15%.
Okay, that's not bad, especially for a recognition strike. And you know,
219.
Yeah, you said that you've got that you're striking for organizing for a bunch of different things, and generally can be summed up, better wages, better working conditions, better benefits, stuff like that. But the demand of the strike specifically is recognize the union and start bargaining, right?
That's right. We are no longer asking for a vote. It's already been decided. The majority of us are outside. We already know we have it. So now it's time for them to recognize us, and that's it. There's nothing else.
How are the customers reacting?
Day one and like day two, obviously our strike day was on a Friday, and then we went into Saturday, and we've never been through a strike before, so there was a little rough patch on Friday, and some of the customers were pretty upset. But I think that over the course of this past week, they've really started changing their mind. Some of them have been stopping and talking to us as to, okay, why are you guys doing this?
Right.
They're actually coming out there and asking us. And when we tell them, they're like, wow, we didn't know all that. And then they're like, we support you guys. We're not coming back until you guys are back.
Oh, yeah.
We have 7-star members that are doing the same thing. But, you're always going to have that negative person, too.
Mm-hmm.
That always has something negative to say about what anybody does. It's just a thing nowadays. But I would say overall, it's a really good turnout with the customers. They understand, and a lot of them that we have spoken with have agreed to stay away until we're back.
Awesome.
And they've sent letters on our behalf, too.
And what about the community? Are y'all getting some good media coverage, or are you getting any politicians supporting you, or anybody like that?
We actually have had some really great media coverage, I would say. We've had Fox 59, we've had Channel 13, we've had CBS. We've had a lot of news outlets. The Shelbyville newspaper covered it. The IBJ, the Indiana Business Journal, covered it too.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we have a lot of media coverage. What was the second part of your question again? I'm sorry.
Any support from elected officials or politicians, or any opposition from them? I don't know. Maybe they're coming out and supporting the company.
So we actually, I'm sure you know her name, Sarah Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
She actually came out today. And we had a rally with Sarah Nelson today, which was actually very powerful, and I would say probably exactly what we needed. Like, having someone like Sarah come out was just really impactful, I think. And hearing her speak about everything that she's done and about her in general, it was, I think it really like lit a fire underneath all of us to keep pushing through, even though it's freezing out here. And, it's getting into like the 28 to 30 degrees at night, and we're, you know, pushing through, powering through the cold.
Yeah.
But we had Sarah Nelson. We've had J.D. Ford, which is one of the senators, come out and support us. We actually just had another senator come out, and her name was Andrea Hunley. She's a senator too.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also had, which is actually, I think, pretty cool, Bernie Sanders' office actually contacted our union rep.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're talking to Bernie Sanders right now about what's going on. So I'm not sure if he's going to put out a statement supporting what we're doing, or what his office is really want to do. So I don't want to speak too much about that. But
yeah,
his office did reach out. So I think that's pretty awesome to have someone of his stature reaching out. And I also think it's awesome to have, you know, our state senators showing up to our rallies and to our picket line and walking it with us and talking to us and encouraging us and telling us that they're by our side and they support us.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super cool, man. Super happy for you. And Sarah Nelson is actually going to be, she's going to the same thing that my co-host is going to. There's some sort of awards dinner at Eugene Debs' house, put on by the Eugene Debs Foundation in Terre Haute, Indiana. How far away is Terre Haute from where you are?
It's probably like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Okay, gotcha. Well, yeah, that's where she's headed tonight.
She came out at
so
9 this morning.
Got it.
Yeah, she's great.
All right,
she's great.
Well, Zach, thank you so much for your call. I've enjoyed it.
Covers a lot.
Do what?
Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for calling in. All right. I think we've probably got our Zoom guest. We've probably got our guest in the Zoom, but we've also got a call on the line. Do we have our guest in the Zoom? Okay. Let's take this call really quick, and then we'll get to the guest. Calling from a 509. Got to be quick. 509 area code. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, my name's Gus, and I am from Portland, Oregon. I just want to respond to Miguel in the chat because, oh my God, he is driving me nuts. I am a union steward, and I was also on my bargaining team this last round. We were able to negotiate a 21% raise over the course of the 3-year contract. You know, 14% in year one.
Wow.
This is at an agency where people are working with folks who are living outside. Some of our members reported that they, are either, themselves coming out of homelessness, and some of them were still living in other shelters run by different agencies. And so a 14%, raise, I'd never had that, but it was absolutely life-changing for some of my folks. On top of that, other things that the union has done for us, just yesterday, they're still deciding it, but I possibly helped a person save their job. If you're Miguel and you're the perfect bootlicking employee, maybe you never ever have made a mistake. And but for the rest of us, hey, I screwed up, and having somebody come alongside you and be able to be hey, let's figure this out. Let's figure out what's going to be acceptable for management to meet in the middle. That's, again, it's a game changer. And I just, he's also saying this stuff about all sorts of jobs have pensions. I help people find work for a living. It's bonkers. No one has pensions these days.
Right.
No one who is giving that.
Yeah, up. Most union workers don't even have pensions anymore. But certainly,
I don't have a pension.
Yeah, the majority of union workers. I don't think the majority of union workers have pensions anymore. But the super majority of maybe 1% of non-union employees have pensions. Yeah, that's crazy. That was bonkers.
Even that seems high.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't know that I can't think of a single. I can't.
What y'all do.
Yeah, man. Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, I can't think of a single non-union workplace that offers a pension anymore. I know people that are working that have legacy pensions, right? That from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
and that they're going to get them when they retire. But for a new employee coming into a workplace, I don't know. I can't think of a single employer that still offers a pension. So thanks for the call, Gus. Appreciate it.
I bet Miguel's encouraging folks to sell off that pension once they get done too.
Probably.
You know, take the buyout.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for the call, Gus. Appreciate it. Yep. All right. We've got our guest on the line. Jesse Baum is a reporter for Capital and Maine. Capital and Maine does lots of investigative reporting on economic inequality and stuff like that. She recently wrote a piece called Dollar Store Workers Fight to Improve Jobs Even Without a Union. It was a great piece. Enjoyed reading it. Jesse, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. Appreciate you taking the time. Can you give folks an overview of the piece that you wrote in Capital and Maine?
Sure. So I wrote about this fight that's going on in multiple states across the South, working to force chain dollar stores. So that's Dollar General. The biggest three are Dollar General, Dollar Tree, and Family Dollar, to become better workplaces, to pay their employees a living wage, and respond to extremely justified concerns about safety precautions at work. And what this organizing fight has looked like is different than a lot of union fights that you typically hear about, because these workers are not calling to form a formal union, and they are working across these different companies and work sites.
Yeah, Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. Well, I also thought it was really interesting how these workers have managed to get the company to respond in different ways, even though it is a very small percentage of workers. When you think about like Dollar General employees, like almost 200,000 people across the country.
Right. Yeah, I've been following these sorts of pre-majority unionism models. It's been called different things over the years, solidarity unionism, stuff like that. And so I've been following this sort of thing for a while. And so I'm curious, what was the hook that made you interested in, like, what was it that you learned that was like that made you want to write a piece about it?
So I'd been hearing about these rallies going on, where they will have rallies like outside of these dollar stores, around the city. And I'd heard of Step Up Louisiana, which is the organization that's active in Louisiana and Tennessee, organizing these workers. And especially in the moment we are in, with these attacks on the NLRB, which we can definitely get into. Your listeners might be familiar with it. I wanted to explore, what does unionism look like when you're a bit decoupled from that NLRB election process? And what does it mean to be building solidarity in this way that across companies? Because I think that, there's a tendency to look at what's going on with union organizing, or really any kind of political fight, and kind of look at what's going on and then not always think beyond what the current paradigm is. So like organizing right now looks a certain way, but it could look really different. And I think that what these workers are doing is pretty different. So that's really what intrigued me. And of course, no shade to people doing organizing with unions. That's not what I mean to.
No, absolutely. I don't think anybody would take it that way. And so for the folks who aren't familiar with the model that you're talking about here, that Step Up Louisiana and the Union of Southern Service Workers employs, for people who aren't familiar with those models, can you explain it? Like, what is it that they're doing that is a little bit different than what the UFCW does at Kroger and Albertsons across the country?
Sure. So in a more like traditional union campaign, you're generally organizing by work site, and you're getting a majority of employees to typically like sign union cards, file for an election with the NLRB, and get a majority of workers to vote union yes. And then with that union that gets certified, the election results eventually get certified by the NLRB, and you start negotiating for a contract. But as a lot of people who have tried to organize unions know or have looked into it, there are certain workplace models that make it like really difficult to do this. And in certain environments, it's just really hard if a lot of people are in your area at your workplace might be more hostile to unions, or if there's a ton of turnover. So basically, this model is in a lot of ways really similar, though. You're talking to your coworkers, in many cases forming an organizing committee of some kind, and you're saying like, we want to pressure our employee into making changes, and how are we gonna go about finding pressure points so that our employer will come to the table and meet our demands. So whatever that would be, if it could be about sick pay, it could be about harassment at work, workplace safety, pay, etc.
Right. And so the reason that they're opting for this sort of more direct, less official channel is because, workers in these places feel like, at least for now, organization through the NLRB and unionization in this whole process it takes too long. It's a bit too unwieldy, and it gives the employers a little bit too much opportunity for shenanigans. And can you elaborate a little bit on what some of the workers told you are the difficulties with the traditional union election, NLRB election, contract negotiation model that makes them move towards this other sort of thing?
Sure. So a lot of what is an obstacle in this for these workers is the issue of turnover. People come and go quite a lot. So if you can get people favorable to a union in one workplace, but they might leave. There's also there's a couple of factors also. These workplaces are super small. Dollar Generals on average employ like 8 people. So aside from the fact that there is a lot of turnover, it's also like if you're looking store by store, getting a union in one store is not going to be a way necessarily that things are going to change across the company overall. And also the companies are just very used to the NLRB election playbook, and are really, really good at union busting this way. And in some ways, because the NLRB is kind of lacking in teeth, there are no like fines imposed, only make whole remedies. It's kind of like the cost of doing business is union busting. So for a bunch of these reasons, it also silos workers by company. So, you're only organizing with people at your company as opposed to a sectoral approach where you're saying like, and a lot of the people I talk to work at these jobs, they're like, these low wage jobs, like they are the same. Any Dollar General, the employees are going to have the same grievances. And if you look across the stores, it's the same. Like people are being treated really poorly in ways that are similar, and they have more in common than they have differently in the way that they're treated. So banding together, even in this way that the NLRB doesn't really allow when you look at like organizing across companies, is a like strategic choice in this case.
Right. And so one of the, we'll talk about the cons in a little bit. I know that a lot of people in unions, and especially who have made kind of a career in unions, are pretty skeptical of this sort of organizing, and not for terribly bad reason. Not skeptical as in like, oh, they think that the workers who are doing this kind of organizing have bad intentions, but that ultimately this sort of organizing is maybe a little bit more what's the word? A little bit, it's not as permanent, among other things. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But, to those skeptics, and you point out in your article that workers have won not insignificant things by organizing in this way, right? What are some of the things that they've won through organizing in this way?
Sure. So in this campaign, the wages have increased in the dollar stores. There's been like modest wage increases of like a few dollars an hour, which like is not meeting the demands that this campaign has laid out. But when you think about workers who started out making $8 an hour, like a $2 wage is a 25% raise. And it's awful that that's how low the wages started out, for sure. Also through like pressuring that this campaign has done at the shareholders meeting in in Tennessee, basically, they got Dollar General to agree to a company-wide safety audit after egregious safety concerns about these stores. When we're talking like millions of dollars in fines from OSHA for fire hazards, and indeed, like the person I talked to for this article, or one of them, David Williams, his Dollar General where he worked at burned down at one point. And then also, like, people are killed at these stores. There's a really high rate of gun violence, actually, at dollar stores because of they're kind of like easy targets for robberies is one of the theories. And they don't hire security guards a lot of the time, and things are poorly lit. So employees and customers are put into these really unsafe situations. So they got the company to agree to a company-wide safety audit. Now, did the safety audit do everything they wanted it to? I was told no. Right. But, I think just getting a huge company like that to start to come to the table, it's a big deal. And especially when you look at like the resources on one side and the resources on another. And it's not the whole thing, but it is like people are making change and they're not waiting around for things to change for them. And I think that's really important. And it doesn't mean it stops there, right? The organizing continues. And then there's other cases when you look at other campaigns that are also not NLRB union election campaigns. I think the case of Las Deliveristas in New York, I mentioned it in my article. People who work for these delivery apps got this massive, not only like basically like a Bill of Rights where they are entitled to certain rights at work, and like being able to use bathrooms, for instance. And then they got this huge minimum wage hike where it's now over $20 an hour. And again, we're talking about low wage work. That's really dangerous. People are on these e-bikes going really, really fast because they are basically, they're counting on these tips per delivery to get paid. And they're on the street, they're in the cold, and they're in traffic. These are really dangerous jobs. And they were able to get concessions, in this case, passed by the city of New York, against these big companies' dearest wishes, right? So I wanted to bring that up too. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit of a cold, if you can hear that. You sound fine. You're doing great, and I appreciate this. And folks should definitely check out the article. Again, it's on Capital in Maine, and the title of the article is "Dollar Store Workers Fight to Improve Jobs Even Without a Union." We're talking to Jesse Baum, a reporter for Capital in Maine. And so you've talked about some of the things that they won through organizing in this way. They're not insignificant. They're like real stuff, right? Nobody's saying it's enough. They don't think it's enough, right? If you go to $10 or $11 an hour from $8 an hour, that's obviously not enough. $11 an hour, nowhere in the country is enough. But like you said, that's like 25% more than you were making before, and that's real, right? I remember when I was a server making, and this was, this would have been like almost 10 years ago, but I was a server making $2 an hour, and I went up to the manager and I was like, I've been here for years, and I should make $3 an hour.
instead of 2. And so, but I felt that in my paycheck. Before my paychecks were like basically nothing because all the $2 an hour went to taxes because of the tips. And so then my paychecks ended up being like $50 or $70 every 2 weeks. And that's like not literally, it is not nothing. And so so making those small differences is important. But there are cons of this model. And coming from most of I didn't really do any union stuff when I was working at the restaurant because I didn't know anything about it. So I wish I could I knew then what I knew now. And I think that maybe the restaurant would still be around if we had been able to organize and make it better because the turnover rate was so high and the quality really decreased by the time that I left. Anyway, some of the cons that I see around this model is the lack of permanence of anything that you would get if there was a union election and a contract that kind of sets that stuff in stone. Whereas, with the pre-majority unionism, if that is all that it is, and I know that most of the organizers don't want it to be all that it is, they would love to be able to get to a place where the organizing kind of turns into a union ultimately, right? But if you don't get there, then ultimately inflation is going to eat away at that 20% raise, and then you're kind of right back where you started, right? And so those are some of the things that worry me about it, is like not being able to lock in the gains that you make. And I'm sure that they're thinking through this. And so how do workers and organizers who are engaged with this model thinking through those cons, and are there any that I haven't identified that they talk to you about, and how are they thinking about trying to mitigate those concerns?
I think you hit the nail on the head, which is that and this is what somebody, Kurt Peterson is his name. He is one of the co-presidents of Unite Here Local 11 in Los Angeles. He's like, everything we do is about getting a union contract that improves conditions for workers. And you're spot on that. In a way, like the gold standard of fighting for improvements at work can be seen as having a contract that reflects improvements that you have fought for, because you're very correct that like things can be rolled back, or a modest wage increase one time, it's not going to get you very far. So I think that is a downside of this type of model. And I think kind of the response is to keep building the worker power. Like I said, like the organizing has not stopped just because the safety audit got passed and there were like these modest wage increases. And these organizers, they're like, we are not anti-union, and they are supportive of other union fights as well. It's just that they're kind of like, this is where we're at now. This is the model that we're using right now as we are building this movement.
Right. Well, I mean, the Union of Southern Service Workers is literally just a division of the SEIU, right? So, definitely not anti-union. So, yeah, well, so I guess as we're wrapping up, what do you think is next for these workers? How do you see the next few years playing out?
I think this is going to be, the unglamorous work of continuing to organize. When I've talked to like David Williams, he's like, it's all about having these conversations with people at work, and talking to them and saying, hey, are you happy with how you're being treated? Like, or this thing happened today, that is, due to a flaw in the way that the company is like providing security, for instance, or doing like stocking. I'm sure most listeners to this program, like they've been to these stores, they understand that these are places with like a lot of problems. And continuing to build that movement. So I think that that's really what's next. It's the unglamorous work of organizing your workplace. And meanwhile, of course, Step Up Louisiana, USSW, like they are organizing together. They're hosting panels about like how to encourage organizers to invest more in the work, training organizers, and things like that. I've also seen them turn out at rallies for striking workers at the hospital here in town. Right now, there's also hiring freeze. I live in New Orleans with the city budget, and I believe Step Up has been working with the City Workers Union as well. So, all these fights are interconnected, and as the NLRB continues, most likely will continue to be attacked. I looked it up recently, like local offices are closed because of the government shutdown. So even though they're not like the big 5-member board, which right now just has 1 member, like things are going to have to change. Like this model is going to have to shift because the NLRB, which was always flawed, which, depending on who is in charge of the executive branch, it moved in different directions. But this is a very serious attack, having 1 member on the 5-member board, appointing somebody from Morgan Lewis, Crystal Carey, to be acting general counsel of the NLRB. But then again, like unions existed before the NLRB. And if you are organizing with your coworkers now, like you still have rights. So things are going to change, I think. But I think the fight will continue.
Jesse Baum. Yes, yeah, absolutely. Jesse Baum is a reporter for Capital in Maine. We've been talking to her about her recent piece, Dollar Store Workers Fight to Improve Jobs Even Without a Union. Is there anything else that you wanted to leave us with before we let you go?
I would just say, like, writing this piece, I did learn about the Emergency Workers Organizing Committee, which is a project of the Democratic Socialists of America, and UE, which is the Electrical Workers Union. They are a great resource for people who are looking to organize at work, whether that is moving towards a union election or just organizing for change in a pre-majority fashion. They're a great resource, and I would encourage people to look into their service.
Yep, and the pre-majority unionism has now a new relevance for folks like me who are federal employees and have had our collective bargaining rights stripped away. So definitely lots to learn from folks doing these sorts of campaigns. The Federal Unionists Network is a really good resource for federal workers who are, newly being forced to organize in this way without the sort of same rights and procedures that we had previously. So lots to learn from these sorts of fights. Jesse, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Really appreciate it. If anybody else wants to call in, 844-899-TVLR is the phone number, 844-899-8857. You can call about the interview that we just had with the great Jesse Baum, or you can call about anything else. There's some people in the chat that want Miguel to call in. Miguel is welcome to call in. That phone number is 844-899-8857. If you want to talk to us about, what you're saying to people that are upsetting some folks in the chat. And we'll see if you can convince me. Maybe Miguel will call in and convince me that he's right, and it'll be me and Miguel against the chat. I don't know. That might happen. We'll see. 844-899-TVLR. While we wait for that, I wanted to take a look at this. I was a little lazy last week, and I didn't pull the clips. So I don't have the clips. We will we'll try to put some of the clips in the YouTube clip of this segment, I think. But I didn't pull the clips, but I did watch the majority of this of another congressional hearing. I love watching congressional hearings. You know me, I am a huge fan of congressional hearings. And so I watched the U.S. Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. They had a committee hearing titled Labor Law Reform Part 2, New Solutions for Finding a Pro-Worker Way Forward. And so they had 5 witnesses, a Littler Mendelson attorney, boo, a guy from the Institute for the American Worker, which is an anti-union conservative think tank, a graduate worker from Stanford University, who is upset that he has a good union that fights for his wages and stuff because he disagrees with some of the union's political stances. A shop steward at Boeing in St. Louis, and a nurse from Minnesota. And particularly, obviously, there was a lot of interest in, or there's some discussion about the Faster Labor Contracts Act. And so the Faster Labor Contracts Act, right, is Josh Hawley's new piece of labor legislation that is meant to be a pared down PRO Act. And, the PRO Act had a whole litany of pro-worker provisions in it. And the Faster Labor Contracts Act just basically takes out one provision of the PRO Act about mandating arbitration for first contract negotiations. And so that's something the PRO Act did, and so that's what the Faster Labor Contracts Act does. It basically says, like, okay, look, if workers unionize, then it sets a timetable, and if the two parties are not able to come to an agreement, then either party can elect to have mandatory binding arbitration for a first contract. So obviously that means that if you were to go to mandatory binding arbitration, that means that if workers don't like the results of the arbitration, then legally they could not strike and they could not vote it down. The contract would be imposed on them by the arbitrator. And now there was a really good article about this in, I think, On Labor. Let me pull it up. On Labor, what critics of the Faster Labor Contracts Act gets wrong. There's a really good article answering critics, but there's an industrial democracy concern there. Obviously, if you have binding arbitration and workers can't turn it down, well, then that kind of takes away the workers' voice a little bit, right? And so somebody asked, the Senator Cassidy, the chair of the committee, asked the Boeing worker who was there what he thought about that provision, or what he thought about that. He didn't associate it with the Faster Labor Contracts Act, but he asked about, what would you be in favor of a law that could potentially impose binding arbitration over the no vote of your fellow workers? And he was like, no, that would defeat the whole purpose of having a union. And so it was very funny seeing a worker from Josh Hawley's state saying, your supposedly pro-labor bill is it would defeat the purpose of having a union, right? And so then there's it's fair enough to say that. And it's funny to point that out, that one of Hawley's union constituents is like not in favor, in principle, it doesn't seem, of this of his big pro-labor bill, and so it's funny to be able to say that. But it's not as bad as it sounds. So this guy has there's a blog on labor.org, and Tasha Shariari Parsa wrote an article titled, "What Critics of the Faster Labor Contracts Act Get Wrong." And so he basically asks about that. He kind of takes you through the thing, and he talks about how, the threat of arbitration doesn't actually take away workers' leverage. It pressures both sides to reach agreements and tends to result in higher wages. The act will also encourage new organizing by effectively guaranteeing a contract on the horizon for those who do. Here, I want to address the most common substantive objection to the Faster Labor Contracts Act, that we shouldn't place federal bureaucrats in charge of contract negotiations. Whether that view stems from faith in free contracting, a commitment to industrial democracy, or skepticism about an outside adjudicator's ability to determine what's best for a specific workplace, I take it that many across the political spectrum, though not all, are wary of arbitrators deciding labor contracts. But this critique misunderstands how first contract arbitration works as a rarely used last result. As Matt Brunig explains, the 70% of first contract negotiations that currently go well will be virtually unaffected by the Faster Labor Contracts Act. The threat of arbitration just helps get the other 30% moving. That's because neither party wants to arbitrate. Arbitration has fees. Arbitration introduces uncertainty. And compared to unions and employers, arbitrators have less intimate knowledge about the specific workplace that helps produce a workable agreement. These are similar to the downsides of a civil trial. And only 1% of civil cases in federal court go to trial. Just as the threat of trial encourages fair settlements, especially between parties who with otherwise unequal bargaining power, the threat of arbitration brings employers to the table in earnest. But almost always, the trial or arbitration does not transpire. The evidence backs this up. British Columbia in Canada offers a useful comparison. Its labor code allows first contracts to be decided by an arbitrator if bargaining and mediation fail. Over a 30-year period, only 0.5% of first contracts were imposed by an arbitrator. The rate is higher in other Canadian jurisdictions that skip mediation, another reason to think that the FLCA, which requires mediation, was thoughtfully drafted. What's more, even in the rare cases where the arbitrator does step in, they're penciling in a provisional agreement. Instead of the current default, which is no agreement, aka whatever the employer wants, the arbitrator supplies a baseline for continued bargaining and a fallback in case negotiations break down. If the arbitrator gets something wrong, the parties can amend or even fully scrap the arbitrator's terms. Finally, when it comes to bureaucratic intrusion, the status quo is worse. Instead of keeping employers and unions focused on bargaining as the FLCA would do, the current rules force the parties to continually return to the board to quarrel not over substance but over the meta question of whether their negotiations are proceeding in good faith. It's like arguing about arguing, an unproductive distraction. Once the board applies the enforcement of a bargaining order, we might say the parties start arguing about arguing about arguing. By leveraging the threat of arbitration, the FLCA nudges parties to bargain in good faith instead of bringing in a third party to directly micromanage negotiating behavior. So that, I was initially actually kind of skeptical about the Faster Labor Contracts Act, but I felt like this article was really, really good and really, I don't know. I was totally convinced by it. And so I would love to see the FLCA pass, because it does seem like, especially after reading this article, it really feels like, if the question is status quo or implementing the Faster Labor Contracts Act, we should probably implement the Faster Labor Contracts Act. And so we'll see what happens there, and we'll keep an eye on it, obviously. And so even though I disagree with the Boeing worker, it is funny to say, to play that clip where he says, no, your bill defeats the whole purpose of a union. That's a funny bit. So there you go. We got a couple of callers on the line. First caller's from a 267 area code. Caller from a 267 area code. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My brothers, this is Infinite Content, your Philadelphia correspondent.
Philadelphia correspondent, Infinite Content. What's on your mind?
Well, I mean, there is so much on my mind because the effery has been coming at us incessant and unstoppable. It's like the Mongol hordes invading, how much effery we have to deal with. But I will cede the field for a moment because I only want about 5-6 minutes of your time. How are you all holding up? I know that one of you is a federal employee.
We're doing as good as you can, I suppose.
People don't understand. Like, I was watching some YouTube videos where I see a lot of these farmers, they want government bailouts. I'm like, wait, you want government subsidies to help you, but you voted against Medicaid, Medicare, and SNAP, and food for children at schools. Make it make sense.
Right. Yeah. Well, the farmers would probably say that most of them didn't vote for that. You know, Dan Osborne actually responded to a very similar sort of tweet on Twitter, where he was talking about how, the farmers are being screwed over by the Trump administration, which is true. Somebody said, well, they voted for that. And he was like, no, they voted against, a broken system that's been hurting them and their families for generation. And they wanted something,
What about black farmers?
So, yeah, I mean, no doubt.
Black farmers have been getting overly screwed over by the federal administration, but we're not even going to get into that. Adam, jump in. I want to hear your points of view.
Adam's not here today. He is he's traveling. So it's just me.
I'm sorry, Jacob. Adam gets a little bit too many days off. You are. I appreciate your time and dedication, but Adam needs to go ahead and put in some extra days. But that's neither here nor there. Another thing, do you understand the wholesale economic devastation that's about to hit the entire country when they cut these SNAP, EBT, and Medicaid benefits? First off, they're going to try and cut SNAP benefits right before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's going to be bad.
Bad is putting it mildly, my brother.
Yeah.
And I try to tell people, I'm like, look, that city boy in an urban area, that black city boy is about the same as that country boy. We both have to deal with BS that we should not have to deal with anyway. But I did see an interesting report the other day where I saw that, remember when the UPS driver got hijacked and kidnapped about 4 or 5 years ago? And down in South Florida?
I don't think I remember that, no.
Okay. Well, basically, these guys, they hijacked they did a robbery at a jewelry store, hijacked the UPS truck, and the cops had everything blocked off. And then they let off over 200 shots. Horrific. The hostage died, the suspects died, they killed a bystander, and 4 of them are actually getting charged with manslaughter. Like I said, people say, which side am I on? I'm always on the side of my brothers and sisters who are working and trying to make this a more better union.
Right.
I'm very rarely, if ever, on the side of police, because police normally only work in their own self-interest or to protect the interests of capital. But I think that what we need to do is find a way to come together in a peaceable way. And like I said, there's going to have to be some pro and some apologies that are made on both sides, on all sides. That way we can unify and be more effective to fight some of these things, because I don't know what or why. Well, actually, I know what 47 is doing, because I will not name him, but he's trying to antagonize black people so that we might come out and he'll have casus belli. We're not buying it. We're just not going to do it. And that's the reason that we are not out in the streets right now. But Jacob, I've taken up way too much of your time. Love you, brother. I hope things go well for you. Go find food bank. I swear to God, I walked by a food bank the other day, and it was 3 blocks long. I'm like, this is the worst I've ever seen this. And this is in the affluent community in Philly. But I'm telling you, things are way worse than they're actually showing.
Yeah.
But I will relent, speak the field. Brother, you take it easy. Love you. I'll call you back maybe next week or the week after.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks for the call.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We got another caller in the queue. If you want to get where he was, the phone number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. We got a caller from a 714 area code. 714 area code. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, brother, this is Max Alvarez calling in from Baltimore. But the area code is my old Southern California Orange County number, so shout out to the 714.
There you go. Max, how are you doing? I was not expecting to hear from you today. It's great hearing from you, man.
Yeah, bro. Hey, man, I'm here listening to the show. You know, I love your guys' work, and it's vital in these times. So, yeah, I was... showering and listening to the conversation about the dollar store workers. And I thought it was a really great conversation. And I just wanted to call in kind of quickly, because, I remember on my show, Working People, interviewing a number of folks from the Step Up Louisiana campaign as well. And I was really excited to hear the kind of conversation that you were having with the brilliant author at Capitol in Maine. And I want to just sort of like tease out a couple more of the points that I think actually speak to the last caller's concerns about, we are facing, an existential crisis in multiple senses right now, like not just a political existential crisis in like, what the hell are we? What is America? Under this new regime, but also, an economic crisis, like the capacity for working people to make a living was already, barely existent in this country. And it's about to, we're about to fall off a major cliff, as the previous caller was saying, not just with this shutdown and the exhaustion of SNAP and the Medicare premium, or the ACA premiums, like doubling in a week. Like, it's going to be a massive wallop to poor and working people across the country, red counties, blue counties. Like, that is a crisis. The real question right now is like, how are we prepared to respond to it? And I want to sort of zero in on the dollar store question as one example among many that can sort of like give us a direction, I think, because, what I'm seeing going around the country, talking to working people in different, states, different workplace struggles, people living in areas affected by, industrial pollution, all manner of working class people dealing with all manner of working class issues that put our lives and our livelihoods at hazard. This would seem like, the moment when a real, working class movement against gangster authoritarianism and, capitalist, suicide, like civilizational suicide, that we should have a pretty damn good argument for why we cannot go farther down this road, and workers need to stand together in every fashion to fight against it. But we are so alienated from each other. We are so beaten down by the conditions of living, and we are so impacted by the screens through which we relate increasingly to each other and to the outside world, that, we don't have a coherent working class consciousness in this country. And that is a key issue, that common struggle in the areas in which we live is the antidote. And, every poor and working class community has a damn dollar store in it at this point. And why that's so important is because in this moment, we need identifiable villains, and we need sort of common terrains of struggle that can bring in different stakeholders who are impacted by those villains in different ways. And that's what Step Up Louisiana is really doing with this dollar store campaign. I was so impressed by the fact that they were working with dollar store workers, but also dollar store customers, you know, faith leaders in these communities. Like, everyone has a reason for why these, you know, stores are a scourge. The author you interviewed mentioned it. Like, you know, customers are just, their safety is just as precarious when they enter these understaffed, overburdened stores with no security guards as employees are. And that's what employees told me as well. But like, I think the one thing I guess I would just offer to add to the great conversation y'all had is that we got to move beyond the primary cause of improving the lives and working conditions and wages of the workers at those stores. Like, that is a critical component, but we need to hitch that and all other, you know, organizing that starts at the shop floor and talks about the wages and working conditions of working people. We have to be able to hook that into a clear, powerful class narrative about what we're up against and how different fights on this front are all combining in a larger united front against the forces that are destroying our lives, livelihoods, and the world that gives us life. And so I think dollar stores are one example among many where you can actually bring, you know, disaffected, disunified, alienated members of a poor working class community together out of a common cause that they all have some connection with. But that common cause can't just be, we got to help these workers at these dollar stores. That's got to be part of it, but we got to be able to bridge the divide between that struggle and the struggle of those of us living in these food deserts where this is the only store available to us, so on and so forth. You get the point. But, you know, I think that every shop floor struggle right now, and maybe we can do a longer segment sometime down the road because I'll shut up and cede my time. But like, I guess that's the larger point that I'm making, is that every shop floor struggle, every union struggle, every labor struggle, like, can no longer just exist in the realm of prescribed labor concerns. Like, it has to be hooked into a larger class narrative of the working class saving itself and our world and our future from these monsters who are destroying us at our jobs, destroying the climate, destroying the economy, destroying our fellow workers in countries around the world for pillage and profit. Like, nothing is going to seem adequate unless we are building that sort of broad, like, we're connecting these issues, but in ways that actually make sense. We can't just say, oh, this struggle is related to that struggle. People need to feel those connections, and they need to, like, have pathways as stakeholders in this fight to enter the united front that we need to build to take this on.
Yeah, that's so right. And, you know, I see openings like what Step Up Louisiana is doing to try to do stuff like that. And, you know, the No Kings rallies across the country have been inspiring because, you know, so many people have come out, and part of the good thing about them is that they're, you know, that they are bringing together people who are upset about different things. You know, like, some people came out to the No Kings rallies because they were upset about the shutdown. Some people came out because they were upset about tariffs increasing prices. Some people came out because they were upset because they were federal employees who have had basically, you know, everything that they've ever fought for taken away, right? But I have been, and so that's great, but at the same time, I'm seeing, you know, I mean, the Republicans just continuing to dig in and, like, allow this stuff to happen and like not moving on. You know, I mean, like, it's the Democrats with the shutdown thing are basically just asking for Republicans to take the noose off of their own neck, and they're not doing it. And it's really, it's so, I don't know. It's been disheartening for me seeing, you know, so little movement on so many different issues. But I mean, one of the things we talked about with the reporter, with these pre-majority unions in dollar stores, is they have been able to make movement, and not insignificant movement. And so, doing what we can to tie stuff together and to, make sure that we're claiming wins when we do have them, I think is really important to make sure that people, continue to have hope and they don't get hopeless, because the hopelessness and being kind of resigned to things happening to you rather than being an actor in history yourself is sort of, that's what the bosses and the billionaires and the corporate class want, right? Is they want us to be resigned to whatever they want to do rather than us, deciding to be actors.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, or if I was just rambling.
No, I got tons, baby. I mean, like, as always, that was, beautifully and powerfully and correctly put. And in fact, I would say that, another key element of this, I mean, like, first and foremost, like, what you said is absolutely true. And, like, part of that is just the inebriation of the perception of total power that Trump and the MAGA right have right now. Right? Like, Steve frickin' Bannon could not go on, television and say matter-of-factly, oh, Trump's going to have a third term. People just better get used to that fact. Like, you don't say that, with that kind of confidence unless you are, again, drunk off your own sense of untouchable power, which, the MAGA right has a lot of reason to feel right now, because their appointees or elected officials control all three branches of government, not just at the Washington, D.C. level, but I mean, we got Trump appointees stocking the judicial circuit all over the damn country. And the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is basically a Trump rubber stamp machine at this point. So every legal victory it feels like we get just goes, like, they've built a system to inoculate themselves from first the pathetic, meek resistance of the Democratic Party, which barely exists, as you rightly point out, but to also inoculate themselves from, popular backlash. Like, let's also acknowledge the fact that, like, a lot of what they're doing is historically unpopular, but they do not care. That does not matter to them. And so the question is why, right? A, because they have the power to not care. That's part of it. B, and this is a point that I think is often lost, but, like, they have a confidence in their ability to fabricate the realities that justify their policies. And, like, this is a new evolution of a long-standing problem with authoritarians in government and in the world of private industry. Is, you lie your way into, like, just brute forcing a fake reality into something that people just accept, by snuffing out, evidence to the contrary, snuffing out dissenting voices, pushing from the top down these false narratives about, like, every worker who's tried to unionize has faced an employer saying, we don't have the money. And the job of every organizing unit is to say, yes, you do. That's a lie, right? I mean, we're kind of dealing with a similar situation where Donald Trump is saying, Portland's a war zone. My wife Meg was just there. No, it's not. Like, you have Kristi Noem standing on the roof of the ICE facility, staring down at, like, 3 protesters and a guy in a chicken suit, saying that everyone who's claiming that Portland is not a war zone is lying. And, like, this is a really, like, I think we need to take the media side of this power grab and move to authoritarianism very seriously, because people's politics always flow downstream from the reality that they believe that they're living in. And so that hooks back into the previous point I was making about one of the things I'm seeing from the field, from going around the country, talking to different people in red states, blue states, small towns, big cities, is that we are all becoming more alienated from each other. Our social worlds have gotten smaller over the past 10, 15 years. That accelerated dramatically with COVID. What also accelerated with COVID was our dependence on screens to mediate our connection to each other and to the world outside of our own physical sphere. And now when you see these billionaire oligarch-owned tech platforms, these billionaire oligarch-owned mainstream media platforms, they are buying up the means of communication and the means of perception in this country to try to, because they are so confident that Americans are so disconnected from the reality outside of their own physical sphere that they can convince a critical mass of people that what they're saying is true. And they know that those people are going to be so locked in their own social bubbles of, isolation and they're going to have people just constantly reaffirming their own worldview, that you create this sort of immovable third of the population that will go with MAGA no matter what, and will be able to resist the other 2/3 of the country no matter how much we say this is a lie, you are lying. So that I can flesh that out more later, but I know I'm running on time now, but I think that this is a really critical reason for why Trump and MAGA across the board are feeling so confident in their ability to not be held accountable by the truth. They do not fear truth the way that maybe they did in the first Trump administration, but you're seeing this play out in the courts themselves. Like, judges are saying, you are basing this decision to send the National Guard in on a lie. Like, you have not provided sufficient truth to justify this. So they're constantly pushing against those barriers, whether they be journalistic, whether they be legal, but they are constantly pushing from the top down to overwhelm the forces of truth that give us the ability to say, this is a lie, this is BS, people should not buy into this. So to quickly sum up, where does that put us? What does that mean for our role right now? And I think, especially for folks like us in the media, a huge part of what we need to do right now is bring people back to a basic shared terrain of accepted reality. And that is why I am so, I gravitate so much to struggles like the dollar store one, because again, in communities where people have so little opportunity to connect with each other, I was just back in East Palestine, Ohio, to give an example. That's a town of 4,500 that was devastated by a train derailment in 2.5 years ago. But it was a small, close-knit community. That community is dead. The shops on Main Street are all boarded up. There's one bar in town. There's no bowling alleys. There's so few chances for people to meet and know and interact with each other. And so they're relating more to each other through Facebook, and they're getting pushed further apart. This is the kind of thing I see happening in parts in all around the country. And so if you're looking at a community like that, they have dollar stores. People are dependent on those dollar stores. People have different reasons to hate those dollar stores. So if you can find struggles like this that can bring disaffected, connected and alienated people out of their holes, out of their houses, out of their internet, created silos, even just for a bit, to just meet each other and talk about real issues that we can all acknowledge are happening, and talk about how they're impacting us, and have the ability for different stakeholders to have an entryway into that fight without feeling like they have to enter for a certain reason, and if they have a different reason, they're no longer welcome. This is a critical task for all of us. And it can happen anywhere. The last example I'll give, then I'll shut up, is I remember also reporting in rural communities in Wisconsin a couple of years ago who were fighting off the construction of these new massive hog CAFOs or industrial farms where, animals are grown and killed and disposed of in a way that would make Upton Sinclair blush, right? Yeah. But what I saw there was really instructive, because you had coalitions diverse coalitions of community members coming together out of common struggle, but people had different reasons for that. Like the MAGA people didn't want those CAFOs there because the parent company was based in China. You had liberal kind of, more middle of the road folks who didn't want them because of the environmental concerns, the animal rights concerns. You had apolitical people who didn't want them because, frankly, no one wanted them because they were going to tank the property values of everyone in the area, right? So you have these interesting coalitions coming together out of common cause, but you also have the knockoff critical effect of a community that's easier to defeat when those different concerns are exploited and push people apart versus those different forces coming together out of common cause. So wherever we see that happening, wherever we can identify a class enemy and bring people together out of like different strands of class rage, felt impact, whether it be the CAFOs in your neighborhood, the dollar stores and food deserts, the health care that none of us have, the schools in our area going to crap. That's the one thing we have going for us is there's no shortage of issues that are taking poor and working people to the cleaners right now. The question is, how are we prepared to pounce on those and bring people out of their silos and find each other again on a terrain where we can all say, this is real, this is happening, and we can work together to do something about it. Okay, I'll shut up and I'll see my time. But I love you guys. I love the work that you're doing, and I love that that work prompts this much excitement and thought and energy in me, and I know it does the same for everyone listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Max. For those of you who don't know, if you're listening to this program, I'm sure you know who Max Alvarez is, but Max Alvarez is the editor-in-chief of the Real News Network, also host of Working People, the Working People podcast. Max, thanks for the call. I've really enjoyed it. He's gone. All right. Well, there you go, folks. I think let's see, is there anything else that I wanted to make sure that we got to before we jumped? We didn't get to the TVA, but that's fine. We'll get to it next week. We've actually got a big panel lined up next week. We're going to be hearing from a couple of unions who work at the TVA, whose members work at the TVA next week. So we can talk about that next week. Yeah. There you go. I think that's going to be it for us. We'll wrap a couple of minutes early. Really appreciate Max calling in. I really enjoyed that. Always enjoy hearing from Max, and he always has great stuff. And the thing about bringing people together, in the real world around problems that they're facing, in their community that are real, that like nobody can tell them isn't happening, is I think is important. And that's why, I've been so dedicated to spending my time in the labor movement, because I think that the labor movement is really a place where you uniquely have the opportunity to organize people in that way, because you are, by nature of being in a workplace, you're in a union with people who disagree with you politically. And so by being able to organize with them around your contract, you can start to make connections to society a little bit more broadly than in your union. And so I think that's a good place to leave it. Appreciate the call, Max. Appreciate everybody tuning in. 844-899-TVLR if you want to leave us a voicemail. And we'll see you next week.